Grade 8, volume chapter. This is your final review prior to your exam. These are 4 questions you will see on your exam, except, of course, different numbers. So we have 4 questions in this particular assignment. The first question gives you a cylinder. And it says the radius of the cylinder is 8 centimeters, the height of the cylinder is 12 centimeters, and it is 40% full of water. And the question simply says, how much water is in this particular cylinder? So the first thing you had to do, and this is not told you, it's not explicitly written, calculate the volume of water, but you need to know that the calculation you need to make is what is the full volume of water. So the cylinder's volume is, for all of the shapes that you're going to encounter in grade 8, the formula is going to be the same. It's going to be the area of the base multiplied by the height of the prism will equal the volume of any right prism. So a cylinder happens to have a base that's a circle, so therefore it's the area of the circle multiplied by the height of the prism. That will be your formula for the volume. Now, I don't care if you use 3 or if you use 3.14. If you use 3.14, that just means your answer is going to be slightly more accurate. If you use 3, it probably means you can do this question without a calculator. I will use 3 because I don't have a calculator. And I'm going to substitute the appropriate information into there. So the expectation is you can take a formula and substitute all of your numbers in so that you can then use bed mass to solve it. Now, because this has more than one operation, and you have to use bed mass, you have to ask yourself, are there brackets? The answer is no, there are not. These things here, a lot of kids think those are brackets, but they're not. They're simply brackets that separate multiplication from exponents. They're not brackets for do this first, because a bracket, for example, like this, that would be brackets to do this first. That would be a b in bed mass. You must do 2 plus 1 before you multiply it by 3. And that's not what this question is. So the first thing you have here is 8 squared, because in bed mass you would do your exponents first. So the first thing you do is 3 multiplied by 8 squared, which is not 16, but rather 64, times 12. 3 times 64 is 180 plus 12 is 192, multiplied by 12. So the volume of this one would be 192 times 12. Let's just see if I can do this in my head. No, I can't. Take my calculator. Oh, bring it over here so you can see it. 192 multiplied by 12 gives you a volume of 2,304 cubic centimeters of space would fit in that cylinder entirely. Now, because 1 centimeter cubed of space will hold exactly 1 milliliter of water, so now we know that it's 2,304 centimeters cubed or 2,304 milliliters, because 1 cubic centimeter of space can hold 1 milliliter of water. So if it was full, and I'll just draw it full here, if I grab my highlighter here, grab my appropriate color of blue, and if it was full, that would be 2,304 milliliters, or roughly 2.3 liters of water. But it's not full. It is only 40% full of water, which means if it were full, it would be 2,304. If it's only 40% full, I need to calculate 40% of 2,304 milliliters. Okay, and that's really the question this is asking you. What is 40% of that? This goes back to grade 7 when you studied percents of numbers. And there's 2 ways to do it. The first way is to use your mental math strategies. And you go 10%. I move the decimal for 10% would be 203.4 milliliters, and therefore 40% would be 4 times that. So if I take 203.4 and multiply it by 4, I get 16, carry the 1, 1, 12, carry the 1, and 9, 1 decimal place. Therefore, 40% would be 921.6 milliliters. Okay, that's using your mental math strategy. Find out what 10% is, and then find out what 40% is, because it's 4 10%. But an easier way is to simply translate it into calculator-ese. 40% equals 4 to 10, which equals 4 tenths. Those are all things you learned in grade 7. And since 40% is 4 tenths, and the word of typically means multiplication, instead of doing it mentally, you could simply take 0.4 or 40% of 2304, and it will still tell you that the answer is 921.6 milliliters. Okay? So to recap what we did here real quick, just to show you in real time again how we calculate this whole thing, here's what we did. So we said that if this was calculating the full volume, I would use the formula pi r squared times height, because the area of the base times the height of the prism is how you get the volume of any right cylinder. Pi we're going to treat as 3, multiplied by the radius, which is 8 squared, multiplied by 12. Use bed mass. Simplify your exponents first, so 8 squared is 64. 3 times 64 is 192. And finally, 192 times 12 is 2,304, which means your units are very important, centimeters cubed. And since 1 centimeter cubed equals 1 milliliter, that means that the volume inside that full cylinder would be 2,304 milliliters. But it's not full. It's only 40% full. So 40% of 2304 mentally, you could find out what 10% is first, which is 2304. And then 40% would be multiplying that 10% by 4 to get 921.6 milliliters. Alternatively, you could think of 40% as being 40% or 4/10 or a decimal 4. And 40% of means multiplication. Then 2030.4, use your calculator, and you would get the same answer of 921.6. Your second question gives you a box. It says this box is made of plastic. And the plastic costs 3 cents per centimeter squared, and it is filled with water that costs 5 cents per milliliter. How much will it cost to fill this? Now, the reason why this might pose a problem to some students is there is information in this question that is superfluous, that is unnecessary, that is not needed. And if we look at this particular sentence right here, this box is made of plastic and it costs 3 cents per centimeter squared. That is the surface area of the particular box. Surface area has nothing to do with how much water this box can hold. This statement, it is filled with water that costs 5 cents, has to do with the volume. So what we have to do is calculate the volume of this box, and since it's a rectangular prism, it's still going to be area of the base multiplied by the height of the prism. That's the formula for all of them. A rectangular prism, however, does not have a circular base like our cylinder did. It has a rectangle. So we're going to use length times width for the rectangle, multiplied by the height of the prism. The length is 10. It's right here. The width is 8, multiplied by the height of the prism, which is 70. We're going to have 80 multiplied by 7, which is going to be 560 centimeters cubed of space inside it. And again, 1 centimeter cubed has a volume of 1 milliliter. Remember that 1 centimeter cubed can occupy 1 milliliter of water. So therefore, if there's 560 milliliters in this particular box capacity, and each of those milliliters is 5 cents, then taking my 560 milliliters multiplied by a nickel a milliliter, it will cost me $28. Therefore, it will be $28 to fill this box. Okay, and again, we'll go back in time to show you how that worked in a second. So again, this question said it is made up of plastic. Hang on one second, go back right to here. It costs 3 cents per centimeter squared. It is filled with water that costs 5 cents per milliliter. This information here was not necessary. So we had to calculate the volume of the box. Volume is calculated by taking the area of the base multiplied by the height. The base of a rectangular prism is a rectangle, which is LW times H. 10 times 8 multiplied by 7 would be your dimensions, or 80 times 7 using bed mass, and finally 560 centimeters cubed. Since 1 centimeter cubed equals 1 milliliter, then the volume of this box is 560 milliliters multiplied by the cost per milliliter. And that tells us, therefore, it will cost $28 to fill this box. Your third question gives you two shapes, a cube and a rectangular prism. It said, which holds more? So for both of them, we're going to use the volume formula, which is area of the base. A cube has a square base, and a rectangular prism has a rectangular base, and both of those bases will be multiplied by their height to get their volume. Here we're going to have 12 squared multiplied by the height, which is 12. Because it's a cube, all of the dimensions are 12. And here we're going to have 15 times 8 multiplied by the height, which is 10. 12 times 12 is 144 multiplied by 12. I should know that one, but I don't. 144 times 12 is 1,728. So therefore, it is 1,728 cubic centimeters of space inside. And this one will be 80 and 40, which is 120 multiplied by 10, which is 1,200 cubic centimeters of space. So therefore, the first one holds more. Now, I should actually mention this to you. On the test, I might ask you this. How much more does it hold? How much more does it hold? And if I asked you that question, you'd simply have to take the one that has more of it. So in this case, this much, and subtract the one that has the least amount, and you get 528 centimeters cubed more space in the cube than in the rectangular prism. And your last question gives you what appears to be a triangular prism, not very well drawn, but anyway. And it is only 10% full. And it gives you V equals. So it actually tells you find the volume of this particular prism, or how much water is in this prism. So the first thing I need to do is I need to know that the formula is still area of the base. Now the base of a triangular prism is a triangle. So by now you have to know that the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, multiplied by the capital H of the prism. Why are they different? Well, this H here, the height of the triangle, is this distance here. And this H here is the height of the prism, which is that number there. So there are two different H's in your formula. One is the height of the face, and one is the height of the prism. Even though they're the same variable, they represent different things. So the base in this particular triangle is this number here, the base times the height of the face itself, or 12 multiplied by 8 divided by 2, multiplied by the height of the prism, which is 5. So when you write your formula and substitute your numbers, you get 12 times 8 divided by 2 times 5. Or you get 96 divided by 2 times 5. Or you get 48 multiplied by 5. Or you get 240 cubic centimeters of space in that prism. Now, if it is 10% full, just like the first question, 10% of 240 is actually a better mental math question, because 10%, all you have to do is move your decimal, which actually exists right here. You move your decimal one spot over, and you get the answer. So without doing any calculations, you can just move the decimal over, you get 20%, and it's 24 cubic centimeters, which would then mean 24 milliliters of water is in the prism, because 1 cubic centimeter is 1 milliliter. Alternatively, 10% is really this, which is really a tenth. So you can take a tenth multiplied by 240, and then when you do a tenth times 240, you get 24 as well, which is the same answer that you got before.